Well, the other day, Stacey Abrams, the failing Georgia gubernatorial candidate, opened a can of worms when she decided to leap into the abortion debate. Now, Stacey Abrams has been failing in this gubernatorial race. She's down somewhere between 6 and 8 points, according to most polls, to Brian Kemp, the person she supposedly beat last time around. She didn't. She lost by 50,000 votes. And then the media decided to treat her as though she had actually won, and they made her the president of the universe in the Star Trek world and all the rest of this stuff. Democrats treated her as the legit governor of Georgia, despite no evidence that she was actually robbed of the gubernatorial mansion. Well, now she's out there running a terrible campaign. And the sad truth is that Stacey Abrams is actually not that great a politician. They keep trying to make fetch happen. The Democrats, they have so many people that they've tried to make popular who they just can't make popular. Whether you're talking about Kamala Harris or Pete Buttigieg or Stacey Abrams, there's just so many people out there that they try to promote as just world-beating candidates who it turns out fall flat. Beto O'Rourke, there are tons of them. Well, Stacey Abrams is sort of 1A. She's exhibit 1A in this pattern. So during this gubernatorial campaign in Georgia, she has taken a photo of herself completely unmasked while all the kids behind her are masked, and then had to apologize and explain that. And then, again, over the past 48 hours, she said that basically ultrasound machines are a hoax, that ultrasound machines make up fetal heartbeats at 6 weeks. So here she was explaining that the fetal heartbeat is actually not real, and therefore you don't have to worry about abortion. Now, in a second, we'll get to the science of what she's saying because it's just not true. But let's assume for a second that what she actually means is that a fetal heartbeat is when the valves open and close on the heart in a fetus. That starts happening around 10 weeks. Is she in favor of banning abortion beyond 10 weeks? I noticed not. So basically, as with most pro-choice rhetoric, it's all an excuse for, I feel like killing babies up until the point of birth. But here she was just misconstruing the science and adding on this very bizarre conspiratorial twist wherein ultrasound manufacturers are trying to deceive women into having their babies by showing them fetal heartbeat before a fetal heartbeat is actually present.
There is no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks. It is a manufactured sound designed to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body away from her.
Okay, this is crazy talk. It's a manufactured sound, according to Stacey Abrams. And not just is it manufactured, it's all a conspiracy in order so that men can promote pro-life positions. So it's invented by pro-life men in order to fake the sound of the heartbeat. Okay, this is much more conspiratorial than anything Donald Trump has ever said about the 2020 election. Okay, this is really a wild, I mean, it's like up there with microchips are in the vax conspiracy level stuff right here. Okay, now, it happens to also be biologically incorrect. Put aside the conspiratorial side of it, just the biology of what she's saying is not true. Dr. Tara Sandler-Lee, PhD, who studied heart development at Harvard Medical School and serves as director of life sciences at Charlotte Lozier Institute, responded, "One wonders if Miss Abrams was absent the day her health class covered human development. Even now, all it takes is one quick search of the public database of scientific and embryology research to confirm the heart is the first functioning organ in a developing human being, with the first heartbeat just 22 days after fertilization. A baby's heart is actively beating at 6 weeks gestation and will have already beat nearly 16 million times by week 15. In fact, at 6 weeks, when Stacey Abrams says a heartbeat does not exist, the baby's heart is actually beating at about 110 beats per minute. Most American parents have seen their baby's beating heart during prenatal ultrasound and discussed it with their obstetrician. The mainstream media can perform Olympic-level semantic gymnastics all they want. Most Americans instinctively understand a developing human organ which beats rhythmically and pumps blood throughout the body is, in fact, a heart." So what the media have attempted to do, as we'll talk about in just a minute, is pretend that what Stacey Abrams is talking about is whether a valve in the heart, whether the valves in the heart open and close, because those develop slightly later. But the early fetal form of the heart has already developed by the time she is talking. And it's a very stupid point. I mean, if you're going to pretend that what actually a heartbeat is not a prenatal heart that is not fully developed beating, then you would also have to suggest, as they presumably do, that unless a brain is fully formed, which, by the way, happens when you're about 26 years old, that's when your brain really stops growing and changing. Up until that point, anything before that is just, kind of pre-fulfilled brain function. It's too basic. It's not really full brain function. So I guess we can kill you when you're like 18 years old, 17, 15. I mean, after all, you don't have full brain function. Your brain's still developing. This is not how this works. Peer-reviewed science on babies at 6 weeks gestation shows the heart is actively beating at 6 weeks. Between fertilization and birth, the baby's heart will beat approximately 54 million times. The baby's average heart rate is 110 BPM. This will rise to 159 BPM by 8 weeks gestation. The presence of a heartbeat at 68 weeks gestation correlates with a live birth rate of 98% in normal pregnancies without any sort of intervention. And there are a wide variety of sources that have talked about all of this. Now, the media have rushed to try to clean up for Stacey Abrams by pretending that actually there is no fetal heartbeat. So Twitter, which again is the most biased news source in America, Twitter will find a trend, and then underneath the trend, to explain the trend, they will basically just put something written by Media Matters. Here's what they wrote about what Stacey Abrams said. Quote, Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams said there is no such thing as a fetal heartbeat at 6 weeks of pregnancy. And doctors agree one doesn't exist during this early stage of pregnancy, reports from NBC News and NPR confirm. Abrams appeared on a panel at an event on Georgia on Tuesday and discussed various state bans on abortion at 6 weeks. She said, quote, there's no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks. Doctors and scientists speaking with NBC News and NPR confirmed that while a fetus has cardiac activity at 6 weeks, a functional heart does not exist yet at this stage. Well, I mean, if it has cardiac activity that's pulsing, that's what we normally call a cardiac heartbeat. Heartbeat. You guys are working real hard to spin this one. Glenn Kessler over at the Washington Post also trying to clean this one up for Stacey Abrams, and he steps into a real pile of scientific horse manure. Quote, for what it's worth, fetal heartbeat is a misnomer. The ultrasound picks up electrical activity generated by an embryo. The so-called heartbeat sound you hear is created by the ultrasound. Not until 10 weeks can the opening and closing of cardiac valves be detected by a Doppler machine. Well, actually, no, that is not what an ultrasound does. Ultrasounds don't even detect electrical activity, as the name ultrasound would actually suggest. Ultrasound is more like sonar. You're listening to sounds. You're not detecting electrical activity. Ultrasound machines are not capable of doing this. There is a scientist, a radiologist named Pradeep Shankar, and he pointed out ultrasound only detects density and motion. It cannot detect electrical activity at all. This is a scientific fact. It's from a radiologist. It is true that the valves in the heart develop later, but cardiac muscles that are located in the embryological heart are contracting. They are, in fact, moving inward and outward. That is how you define a beat. He says the cardiac tissue is contracting, which is literally what a beat is. To say otherwise is scientific misinformation and cannot be treated otherwise. So, again, this bizarre notion that you can just spin this away. There's no such thing as a heartbeat. Literally, the National Institutes of Health, quote, baby's heart continues to grow and now beats at a regular rhythm, weeks 6 to 7. How bad was this? All the cleanup? It was so bad that Planned Parenthood had to walk this one back. Okay, Planned Parenthood on their own website said just months ago, quote, a very basic beating heart and circulatory system developed during the 5th to 6th week of pregnancy. This is abortion mill Planned Parenthood. But Planned Parenthood later amended its website to more closely reflect the pro-abortion messaging against heartbeat laws. Because again, people tend to think that if there's a beating heart there, then pretty obviously this is a human being that is not you. It's not just a polyp inside your uterus. Now the site says a part of the embryo starts to show cardiac activity, which is a very roundabout way of saying that there is a fetal heartbeat. NBC News in May reported that experts say the term fetal heartbeat is misleading and medically inaccurate, but the article from NBC News months ago goes on to quote a doctor who says the heart does begin to develop at around 6 weeks, but says at this point the heart as we know it does not yet exist. Again, if the argument is that full development of the heart as in adults is necessary in order to count it as a fetal heartbeat, then presumably the same thing would have to be said about brain development. And we know very clearly that early brain development in children is a lot more rudimentary than it will be as an adult. Are you allowed to kill kids 2 years out of the womb? Unless you're Peter Singer from Princeton University. He actually says yes. He says because these are not fully developed human beings. You can actually kill kids post-birth. If Democrats want to play this game, they're going to win some stupid prizes. But this is in the nature of what Democrats have to do. When reality runs in the face of their actual philosophical positions, reality must be ignored or called disinformation. So Kamala Harris yesterday, the vice president of the United States, she was out there again attacking crisis pregnancy centers. In other words, places that help women with their pregnancy, but encourage them not to kill the baby. Which, last I checked, is actually a good thing. Like, you're having a problem with your pregnancy, you don't have enough information, you need support, and these crisis pregnancy centers come and provide it for you. You go to them and they provide you the kind of support that you need health-wise and tell you not to kill your baby. She would prefer that you go to the place where they tell you to kill your baby, and none of it's really a big deal. That's not a fetal heartbeat. That's just some weird cardiac activity stuff happening over there. Well, it's not a fetal heartbeat. So here is Kamala Harris calling crisis pregnancy centers disinformation. Again, this is the same party that will suggest to you that basically a fetus is a cluster of cells up until a woman randomly chooses that it's not a cluster of cells, at which point it becomes the most beloved object in her life.
I met with many of you in my office at the White House, and we discussed the innovative strategies that you have used to defend women's reproductive freedom. You are taking on rightly the crisis pregnancy centers, launching public education campaigns, because I don't think I have it here, but I'll show you all a map of the United States right now in terms of the patchwork of different laws in different states on this issue and the confusion it is creating, and the need then for some of the most trusted elected officials to clarify the state of the law. And in the midst of the vast amount of confusion, the need of you as the truth tellers to sort out fiction from fact and combat misinformation and disinformation, which we all know often creates a situation that is ripe for predatory practices.
For predatory practices, wow. By the way, notice how they can now conflate misinformation and disinformation. Remember that time in 2016 when they said Russian disinformation changed the election? And then they shifted the language. Now they call it misinformation. And now they just say the two simultaneously, misinformation and disinformation. Typically, disinformation means there's some sort of foreign source promoting propaganda that is false. Now she's basically saying that there's purposeful misinformation and disinformation. They are the same thing. Essentially, you're a traitor if you believe a pro-life point of view, seems to be the implication here. Or you're a liar. And it's just a good thing that you have people like Kamala Harris out there nodding at you with a weird hand motion and her slightly nasal voice, telling you what the truth is about fetal development. Man, they are truly bad at this. Speaking of people who are truly bad at this, Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, Teetha Clacken, she was out there explaining that if you actually believe in the pro-life position, this means this is like repealing the 19th Amendment, you know, the one that says that women can vote. It's like that. If you say that women should not kill babies in their womb, that in fact, the height of human existence is bearing children, which it is. If you say that, then this means that you hate women and you want to repeal the right to vote. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.